I really wanted to be back in the States because it was popping off. It was amazing. It was this like anti-capitalist swell and movement. So because of a little call to action from the magazine Adbusters, which is an anti-capitalist sort of culture magazine, beautiful artwork, etc. They called everyone to converge on Wall Street on September 17th, 2011. This is in the middle of the Great Recession, right? So kids and people are losing work, losing savings, seeing that like they're not able to find any jobs after getting out of school. And it happened. People converged on Zuccotti Park and camped there for 2 months until they were violently evicted by police on November 17th. But we're talking food banks, libraries, sanitation crew, over 100 working groups, daily general assemblies, and a movement that really spread across the country. So, Sunny, you and I were like in the global justice and anti-war movements leading up to that. When it started to pop off, what did you think? And when you went, like, what were you greeted with?
I mean, I have to be honest and say, I think I and a lot of my peers and comrades were a little bit dismissive at first. We were like, what are these youngins up to? I mean, we were young-ish at the time, but I was in my early 30s. I think I was 30 or 31, maybe 30 when it started. And I thought it was maybe just going to be like a little protest. There was like that what do they call it? Bloomberg City or something that happened a little bit before that. It wasn't called Bloomberg City, but it was some sort of like similar encampment kind of thing. And so I didn't really take it super seriously at first. But very quickly, like within a few days, it kind of became this magnetic force in New York City in terms of everyone who is active around any social and economic justice issues. It sort of became this hub. And so I decided to go check it out. I think the first day that I went, maybe it was like the 19th or so of September. I went with my trumpet. Red Barath was a newish band at the time that I was playing in, and that's mostly what I was focusing on, but I was still doing a lot of education and training work as well, a little bit less organizing, but a touch. And
music is arguably the most important piece. Let's all acknowledge that music really does make any demonstration or protests, but keep going.
Yeah. And that's honestly how I thought I would engage. I was like, okay, cool. It's like a little mobilization. Let's bring my trumpet or my dole, which is a big Punjabi drum that I play, and like lift people's spirits. I'll get a good little trumpet workout playing outside and then go on about the real work. And then very quickly, it became clear that this was something very different, and something that was quite a sort of intersectional cross movement hub that was attracting tons of us into the fold.
I just really have to play this clip from you. This is Sunny a few weeks after, I believe, the start of Occupy Wall Street. He's not aged a day in 10 years, clearly, but here he is explaining what it's like down there on the ground.
I'm pretty inspired to see all these young people that have been sleeping out there, coming here every day, like such a broad-based group of folks representing lots of different movements, and some people that have no connection to movements or activism that are just coming under this "we are the 99% thing. I think it's really smart. I think it's really inspiring, and I think it's the kind of hope and energy that we need in our social justice struggles right now. So it's exciting that this South Asians for Justice contingent is headed there together right now.
Yeah, hell yeah. And so just quickly, something I didn't mention is this is where, if you guys have heard, like, you know, the 1%, the 98%, that was not popularized by Bernie. That was popularized by Occupy Wall Street. Bernie picked up on that, right? This entire idea of income inequality that we'd spent like, what was it, like 10 years at that point, not talking about like economic justice because the war on terror had really taken up all the air in the room and stopping the war on terror, taking up all the social justice struggles in a lot of ways. But who were the people on the ground? And I don't know, Nato, maybe you can also weigh in on like who are the kinds of people that you saw? Did they seem green? And then how did you like insert yourself as someone who is a more seasoned organizer?
Yeah. I mean, I would totally agree with your assessment that I mean, we'll talk more about the impact and the legacy, but there really wasn't a lot of anti-capitalist politics at the forefront of sort of social justice-y spaces in that moment. I'm like NATO, I'm a former union organizer as well. That was my first job in New York City, and I feel like the labor movement just
do you
couldn't.
Want a job? I will hire you if you want to move to Oakland.
when I moved to New York, actually, I applied for like 35 jobs. I was 23, and only 2 of them were at labor unions, and those were the only 2 job offers I got. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm working in labor. Yeah, I mean, I think labor wasn't really able to accomplish really bringing that class politics and that anti-capitalist politics to a newer generation of activists. And until Occupy kind of popped off, it was a void in many ways. It was something that our generation, who was in many ways radicalized by the anti-globalization movement, and I was active in Students Against Sweatshops in college, and the whole, Seattle, global justice, zapatistas, right? Like anti-capitalism, a world without that puts people before profit. That was what we were about. That was front and center in what we were trying to do. And I think for many, many years that wasn't front and center in social justice spaces. And yeah, I mean, I think when I got there, I was in some ways very underwhelmed, but in some ways just so excited by the potential, because there were so many, as I was saying in the 10 years ago clip, there was a lot of people there, and maybe even the majority of people there were brand new to activism. And I think many feeling very hopeful and optimistic after Obama's election in 2008, and then just seeing just how false of a promise that was, right? I was jaded enough in 2008 to be like, I was like, I'm cautiously optimistic that Barack Obama got elected. That's kind of where I was at. I was like, fuck the Democrats. They're a pro-corporate party, but like maybe this is some symbolic progress. But I think this was a generation of people a little bit younger than me who were really inspired and excited, and then saw like, oh, as long as our entire political system is controlled by investment banks, controlled by the wealthy, controlled by the 1%, we're not getting anywhere, right? And so that was like the very basic unifying call, which I think is such a compelling one. And it really started bringing out a lot of us who were, I don't know if I was seasoned at that point, but a lot of us who were in it, right? From grassroots organizations, from labor, from anti-police brutality movements, from racial justice movements. We all started kind of making space there and building together.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to ask, and NATO, feel free to jump in wherever, but the unique part of this was that...
My burning question is, Sonny, did you join the drum circle?
I was just thinking about how, now neither of y'all were in New York, but like a few...
I got to New York.
Oh, so do you remember when when and how long the drummers could play became this big source of conflict?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting about this.
And then there was video, I remember there was like a huge debate broke out in the General Assembly because people kept donating money about whether to spend the money on upgrading the gray water system for the people's kitchen or to help buy new skins for the drums. And the drum circle was like, we have been maintaining
We've been drinking the gray water.
We've been drinking the gray water. We're a little bit loopy. So at the time, I was on tour with Laughter Against the Machine. It was me and W. Kamau Bell and Janine Brito. And on September 17th, 2011, we were in Madison, Wisconsin on tour. And we were doing the premise of our tour was to go to places where there was political shit happening. But there sort of wasn't it was it at the time going into it, it felt like a dark moment. You know what I mean? We were, in Wisconsin, Scott Walker had just done all this legislation to bust the unions. The Tea Party was insurgent, and the whole frame of American politics was around the debt. And we can't do anything good because of the debt. And there was this horrible racist backlash in Arizona with Joe Arpaio and SB 1070. And so that was sort of the impetus of the tour was man, these people are catching hell in all over the country. We have to go out and give them a laugh. And so we were in Madison, Wisconsin when they launched the ultimately unsuccessful recall of Scott Walker. And we, we had a tour documentary, which you can see. It's streaming on Means TV if you want to watch it. And on September 17th, there's footage of us sitting on the stage after the show chatting and being like, oh, well, we have another 6 weeks of the tour. No more news in America. This is it. We don't have to write any new jokes for the next 6 weeks. And then a week later, so then that day Occupy starts. A few days later, the police violence is escalating with the kettling of protesters and the pepper spray. And then I so vividly remember two things happening at the same time. One was the We Are the 99% Tumblr launched, where people were doing those, doing the Tumblr of the picture of them with the sign about like what they were facing. That was so gutting. And then there was one day on Twitter where it spread from New York. And I just remember sitting on Twitter watching the feed in real time of like, Occupy Albuquerque, we're meeting here tomorrow. Occupy Chicago, we're meeting here tomorrow. Occupy Detroit, we're meeting here tomorrow. And it fucking spread across the country literally overnight. I ended up visiting, I think, 6 or 7 cities. I know I got to New York, San Francisco, Oakland, obviously, Portland, DC, and New Orleans. And so I got to see like the national variation in some of the scene. But when I was in New York, I was with Vernon Reid, the Grammy-winning guitarist of Living Colour, who had very specific critique of the drum circle technique.
Sonny, what was your? Sorry, go ahead, Nina. What was his critique?
Vernon was like, people wouldn't think this, but I fuck with the drum circle. But you need to have one guy who has the beat, and if they don't have one guy who has the beat right now, and it's just upsetting to me.
Which is, in fact, sort of a little microcosm for maybe the entire movement. Yes, it's a metaphor for the whole movement of no one necessarily leading the beat, no one leading the drum circle. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.